intelligencesquared.com.
Things. Next to me, in the striking spectacles, James Bridle, who will also be supporting the motion. James is a prolific editor, author, again sometime publisher and technologist. Over to James Bridle.
Thank you. Considering the question of relevance in publishing is really a question of considering what publishers think that they do, and what we do, and how we shape what it is that we do. And I am speaking very much as a publisher when I talk about this. Publishers, I think, have really failed to understand or forgotten what it is that we do in the world and the purpose of our business, which is to sell books, but it is also to create things in the world. And it's by focusing on that that we get things out. My favorite example of this is in advertising. Open any newspaper, any literary supplement, anywhere, or even on the billboards on the tube, and look at the way the way publishers advertise books, and you will see this pack shot with these quotes attached to it, this object, this thing. You know, here is a thing, you must buy this thing. There's so little there of what reading really means to most people. On the other hand, if you look at the way it's, say, Apple or with the iPad or Amazon with the Kindle advertise their books, you see their adverts, and what you see is people actually reading. You see people immersed in the reading experience, in the book itself, which is not the object, this chunky thing, but it is the process that you go through when you read a book. Now, this isn't about advertising, but it's about imagination, and it's about how we consider what it is that we do. Publishing has failed to imagine this in a huge range of ways, and it continues to do so, and this is incredibly detrimental. It's failed to cooperate particularly strongly. Publishers don't cooperate. If you go to Germany, or you go to, I'm talking specifically about the UK here, if you go to Germany, if you go to Scandinavia, soon in France and Italy too, and elsewhere, publishers are cooperating to create their own e-book markets. They're creating their own websites and ways to sell, which means that publishers regain a certain amount of control over the whole process, which we need. We see how we're being eaten by Amazon over here. And that failure to cooperate has damaged us hugely in the last few years. We fail to evangelize what we do. We've had this massive loss of confidence in it. It's terrifying. What we do is valuable. The editorial and the curation is an incredibly powerful thing. But do we talk about it to our customers? No, we simply try and sell them things. With the dearth, the increasing lack of reviews, we've come over all scared, and we rely on TV book shows and reading groups to tell us what we should be publishing, rather than having the confidence to do it ourselves. And we come over constantly as the enemies of reading, which is this horrible thing. Like, the way most readers interact with publishers is they hear stories like, yeah, you can borrow ebooks from the library, but you can only borrow it 5 times, and it may be out when you want it. That's the official publishing position on libraries, and that's what our readers are hearing. Or they hear us cavilling about the pricing that we need ever more increasing costs for ebooks. They're very, very expensive too, despite the fact that publishers keep announcing ever-increasing profits from digital, even though that massively exceed the rate at which they're actually selling. There's a disconnect here, and our readers are aware of this. We put DRM into the books, despite seeing how this has failed in the music industry, how it's destroyed it. We keep telling people how they can read our ebooks, the ways in which they can do it, which are not helpful to them. These are no good for our readers, and it is our readers we must be thinking about, because they are the people who are buying our books, and they're people who should be loving what we do and supporting what we do, because what we do is fantastic. And we've also failed to value those skills that we have as well. All the things we've been talking about, or that have been mentioned so far, that are the skills of publishers, we don't actually do a huge amount with them. We talk a lot about the editorial input we put into books, but we've been pushing that back as far as possible onto authors and agents for a long time now. And we haven't been pushing that and making a big deal of those skills. We have decades, centuries in fact, of experience in really hands-on skills of typography and of book production. But go and buy an ebook now and count how many horrible, terrible typos there are in it. See how badly it is laid out, even for major publishing houses and major works. And you'll see that somehow we seem to have taken everything that we know we're good at and sort of go, oh, well, it's electronic now, so we don't need to care about that stuff. And it's a terrible and it's absolute betrayal of everything good that publishers do and everything that we are capable of doing. And this isn't happening in isolation. This is happening while we are being surrounded from all sides by people who will happily eat our business. You know, Amazon, Apple, and Google have made huge strides. 5 years ago, Amazon was only selling books, and only selling paper books. Now Amazon is acquiring books. It is helping with editorial and promotion. It is printing them. It is designing them. It is has developed a complete end-to-end digital supply chain, which is something that no publishers has even really considered seriously doing. We've let them do all of that in the last few years without any real fight back. And at the same time, we've alienated the readers and the writers. Readers now have this wealth of opportunity, a wealth of choices about where they go to read, and we've given them very few good reasons to come to us. And we've pushed back at writers as well. We all know at the fair the stereotype of the mad author, and they're starting to notice that that's what we think of them, and that's not very helpful either. If they're small, they have their chance to form their own communities online and do their own marketing and work, and it is hard, but it's better than nothing. And if they're large, then they may look at publishing and go, where's the value in this? I could be doing this for myself. And they or their agent will take their business, take their rights elsewhere and do it themselves, as we've seen people like Catherine Cookson doing recently, we've seen the Wiley Agency doing. These are real things that are happening, and it's only going to get worse for us. But for readers, better, because we're not doing anything to help them. So I don't want your vote for attacking publishers. I want your vote, please, for supporting the fact that publishers still have the possibilities to become relevant. And I want to very quickly give a couple of examples of where I think they can. The first one is those readers who are best readers, who are also our potential authors. And we've done a lot of refusing to accept unsolicited manuscripts and generally pushing back at them to piss them off. There are ways of doing that. I think Faber's Academy, for example, is a really good way of engaging with readers and an interesting way in getting them on board. Or something like Red Lemonade, which is the first imprint from Richard Nash's Cursor project, which is a community-building exercise where the roles of reader and author are almost interchangeable, where everyone is involved in the creation process and building an interesting community around writing. There's the example of the coming revolution, which is going to be the biggest thing in publishing in the next 5 years, which is around social reading. And this is the fact that for so long, we don't really know what our readers are doing when they're in the book. It's an incredibly powerful thing. And suddenly with ebooks and digital technologies, we have this amazing window into the actual reading process itself. And there's really exciting stuff going on around here. But actually, the leaders in this so far, who are Amazon and Apple, aren't doing so much here. And you can tell this because there's weird little startups doing interesting things. People like Findings in America or Readmill who are based in Europe. They're looking at ways in which readers can interact with the text while they're reading it. If publishers get involved in that space, it gives us incredible new tools and ways to talk to our readers and interact with them, which is how we should be selling books. We have to change the way we think about what we do, and I'm running out of time, so I won't talk about the amazing young entrepreneurs I'll be speaking with at 4 o'clock this afternoon, but look it up in your programs, it's going to be awesome. My point is that if publishers are not yet irrelevant, if they don't act soon, they will be, and finally and fatally so. But there remains a chance to seize back the high ground of reading itself, which is where publishers belong. And I urge you to give me your votes, not because you think publishing is irrelevant, but because you think we must do more to preserve our relevance. Thank you very much.
So over to James.
Yeah, I have several fundamental disagreements there. I have to say, as much as I love it, I don't think this is a healthy industry. I think we're a content industry that, like any other content industry based on scarcity, is facing an ever-increasing abundance. Like newspapers, even like ad agencies, in fact. There's a smaller and smaller amount we have to offer, and we need to rethink that quite desperately. We need to rethink the business model. A gentleman asked about author advances and so on, how books are financed. Well, there's a wide range in which they can be financed. And while they are flaky and they're still coming to life, you can see authors taking them to abandon. If you go onto something like Kickstarter, you'll see that over half the projects on Kickstarter are people trying to write books and getting funded for them and finding new ways, finding their own business models outside the publishing industry. We need to rethink the life of the book itself, what Richard did say about marketing 24/7. But also about the formats, getting them right, getting ebooks right, getting the basics right, which isn't so bad, getting our backlists out there. So much of our work is locked away. Instead of blindly opposing things like the Google settlement for orphan works, addressing this ourselves, coming up with good solutions ourselves for how to address these things, how to get more books into more readers' hands. We need to rethink the form of the book itself. Publishers like to think they define the book, but we haven't. The book is a product of a certain way of printing and marketing and distribution that's existed for only about a century or so, or less in the form of paperbacks, but that's changing now with digital delivery. Amazon doing things like the singles. They're doing something we've never been able to do, which is sell short stories and poetry in this different format because it's now available to us. The market and the formats dictate these things, not publishers. Finally, we really need to rethink the relationship between readers and our relationship with readers and writers. Richard's right in saying that we need to serve authors, but we need to serve readers as well, because they are now better informed than ever were before. Andrew mentioned about, everyone knows what Bloomsbury book or a profile book. We're like, well, I don't think they do outside this conference centre. I don't think anyone does at all. And publishers' responsibility to speak to their readers and not just to their authors is what's going to define us for the next 5-10 years. And please vote for the motion. Thank you.